Good day and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Arthur Francis Diban. You're welcome to Talks by AFD. So, we're going to be talking about the events happening within our world today and the circumstances surrounding them and the reason why they've been persistent in the manner in which they have. But today, let us look at the Russia-Ukraine war. I know I made a video about the Russia-Ukraine war, although it wasn't that much audible at the point, so I just felt probably I should hold on a little bit. But for the time being, I'm just going to go across what I discussed earlier on to see um, the pointers, to stress them a little bit. Of course, we understand that the war in Ukraine was as a result of the Ukrainians wanting to join NATO and EU and having signed an agreement before they were made independent, never to join any military alliance with any other country. So they failed woefully on that. And the reason why that war has been on for almost 1,000 days plus is because of the involvement of NATO, or best put, of America in that whole scenario. Americans have been behind them, supporting them through NATO and through other aid, ensuring that they're going to be with them all through. They're going to support them. They're going to fight for them. They're going to whatever they want to do. And to a large extent, they haven't been achieving much because they've been massacred in a very large scale, and we've seen the dominance force of the Russians in this whole world. How powerful they are, their armoring, their weapons, their modern technology, and all of that. So we've seen all of that. We saw when they broke through the Cox region, and we felt, oh, the Ukrainians are doing something good, which we know must have been through the influence of the involvement of the NATO countries. But whatever it is, even if they deny that, we know the reality. And we've seen how the Russians have pushed them through in the Cox region and even beyond. We saw what happened in Vochans with their new developed weapons. I think that should be ODAP 9000, how it obliterated a large mass of area, and many other stuff that have taken place. We have always hoped and believed that one day this whole thing is going to come to an end. Especially, we've always believed that when Trump ascend the position or into power, this whole thing will come to an end. But at a point, we begin to see that this whole thing may not actually come to an end because of the manner in which Biden administration is going on with their policies. Trump promised to put an end to these whole wars in Asia, in Europe, and all of that, in the whole world. He intends to do that. And to a large extent, he has shown, we know he's a man of his word, he's going to do what he said. But the reality right now, he won actually. But before he ascends to power, that's going to be like 2 months away from now. Negative decisions have been made on about the NATO, about the Russia-Ukraine war. Those negative decisions are very dangerous. For example, Biden at first never intended to give the Ukrainians the long-range missile, which they could target directly into Russia. That was what he said, that it is, of course, it is a red line. Or they've crossed a whole lot of red lines, and there have been modifications in their Russians have done a whole lot of other stuff to ensure in their nuclear treaties and all of that. Now, finally, he has lost. Yes, we know that. And Trump is to come into power, and he has approved the long-range missiles. And they definitely, automatically, they've tried that. They've used them almost in 2 days afterward. They've shot into Russia. Russia countered about 5 of them, and so on and so forth. But to a large extent, if this persists, of course, we know Russians obviously are going to reply, and we know what their reply may mean is on the large scale will be negative. And the Americans have not backed down. They are continuing to support them. Trump Jr. once said a couple of days ago that his father won the election, While he's preparing to bring peace into the war, the Biden administration is trying to push the world into a third world war before the emergence of his father. And that's to a large extent very true. Because when this persists, Russia, of course, as a single country, may not be able to combat or fight the whole European nation, including NATO altogether. And we know that's not going to be possible. On a large scale, it's never going to be possible. So the only way they will be able to equate their military might and strength with what is happening is for them to go nuclear. And we've seen the Russians have been preparing for protective nuclear how they call it, shelters for the citizens, which are even mobile. They move them on and on. We can protect the people against gas, toxic gases, and all of that. That shows up to a large extent that Russians are going to react. But to what end if this reaction commences before Trump becomes the boss? Because, of course, if Trump should ascend into power, all of this will end. Americans have been the problem of the world from day one. It's obvious they do not want this war to end. They want a third world war. They are pushing Trump to a fixed position where he will have no other choice but to react. But as to the reaction, that's what we don't know. Obviously, it's going to be negative. So what is our fate? And why are the Americans and the European elite or leaders, not let me not call them elite, they are no elite, the European leaders pushing this agenda of the Third World War? Why? Is it because probably the Russian Federation tends to back up the Africans, to support Africans to a large extent, to extricate them from this post-colonialism, which has becoming a pandemic generally, because of course they say that these countries are free, but on a large scale they are the ones who make the policies. They tell the African countries what to do, what not to do. The Africans leaders tends to be their puppet. And insofar that they remain their puppet, they are not going to be liberated in any way or anytime soon. They now use the African resources to their own advantage and tell us a whole lot of stories why Africans are poor. For example, look at France. France on a large scale is a very poor country. France can survive on its own without its involvement into the African countries. But they will look for all excuses in the world to tell you why Africans are the way they are. To a large extent, of course, I believe, I know, I blame also the African leaders. We should be ready to die for the sake of our own people. But the leaders ain't ready to die. I think that's the whole story here, because at the end of the day, when the colonial masters take their own share, the leaders will take their own share, the people will be left in poverty, massive poverty. These countries are large countries with a whole lot of mineral resources, but they are so poor that they cannot even make their own route. They can't produce nothing. They technically, officially make transactions, buy everything, and import almost everything into the country. That's sad. Come on, that's sad. That's so bad. So, what is the problem with Americans in this whole Russia-Ukraine war? What do they want? Do they want us to go to a third world war? Do they want to exterminate the Russians? We know history very well. If you're a child of history, you will know that there was an invasion through the Cold War many years ago. The Russians won the Napoleon invasion of Russia. He was defeated. Adolf Hitler was defeated. NATO, whatever, they will also be defeated. It's not, I do not want to feel as if I'm making the Russians look so powerful, like they are undefeatable. But somehow, some way, they've been able to survive all these negativities in one way or the other. They are just one powerful nation and the largest country in the world. Russia is about 5 times the size of Europe. Come to think about it. So Russia itself has the capacity on its own to deal with any country you want to deal with. They have one of the latest ICBM in the world. They have the letters. They have the letters. Let me put it that way. One of the best weapons, So if this war was to be directly with Americans without the nuclear, I don't see Americans surviving it. Trust me, they wouldn't survive it. So they want to use the NATO body, which is made of closely up to almost 50 countries that are about to fight one country, which is broad injustice on its own. All right? On its own is injustice. But let us not look at the injustice that way, like they don't want us to look at it that way. On a very normal day, I want to tell you without missing word that Russians will never be defeated. Russians will never be defeated. Russians are going to, when Americans push this agenda of trying to overthrow Russia or defeat Russia by escalating the war, by obliterating the Russian race, that will be the downfall of NATO and America. They're going to lose all power by every means possible because they will not succeed. Russia will defeat them. I you're gonna be wondering where's he getting this conviction that Russia cannot be defeated? Of course, that's true. Russia will defeat them on a large scale. Russia will defeat them without stress. Even if the war have to go nuclear, Russia will defeat them, and that's the reality. Take that from me. So we're going to be following the event as they move on. The attackams have been used by the Ukrainian into Russia, though the Russia government said they're going to respond. We do not know how the response is going to be. And we've always been hoping that this whole thing should delay as long as it could until Trump comes into power so that he'll be able to put a hold on it. We've been looking at it from that way. Um, and it's because it is obvious that Russians have the right now to respond. Why? Because the attackers used by the Ukrainians have to use a satellite to be able to target Russia. And that satellite, the Ukrainians don't have a satellite, which means they are either using the European satellite or the American satellite to target Russia, which is a very powerful aggression. That is the last of the red lines which has been crossed. So to a large extent, Putin has been a gentleman. He has been the best of the gentlemen I've ever seen or know or read in history. That he has been patient all these years, all this while with all the kind of things happening. He has been patient and he has been looking for that this whole thing will come to a halt because he do not enjoy. It's not a warmonger kind of. Americans are the people who love the war. The Europeans want to fight war. Probably they're going to sell their weapons and so on and so forth. They have various ways in which they gain from all this trouble. But I do not see how Russians gain from it because they, although with all the sanctions, they've been able to overcome the sanctions and they are still doing well and they continue to do well. They have one of the best economy presently now in the world. We like it or not. So they are good. And their soldiers are well experienced because they've been on one war or the other, which has many a time been brought to them. So we have been looking at the chemistry of the whole reaction that Trump will be able to ascend to power before this whole thing go haywire. Because if that don't happen, if this war should start, Trump definitely may not have the chance to come back, or even before he thinks of coming back, the war may have been gone. But I want to tell us today that when this gets to that level, America as a country will cease to be the war power. They will be so devastated at the end of the war. Of course, they are looking for it. And the European countries like the France and so on, all of this, Britain and so on, these countries are going to be dealt with because they have been the ones who pioneered this whole event and actions. So, I believe we will see how every day turn out to be. And my only advice to the world today, right now, is for everybody to get prepared. We've been very so close to the Third World War. I don't think the war has ever been this close to the Third World War. And there is just one person who is holding it from happening, and that's Putin. And that's why we have to send a whole lot of accolades to him. We must appreciate his gentility, his understanding, and his ability to manage the crisis all this while. He is the one man who hold the key to this Third World War from happening. He is the one man. If he let loose, open the door, we are all out. And it's going to be devastating, especially for those who live in the key cities, the European countries, and America itself, Canada, and all of these other countries. It's going to be terrible over there. So let's continue to hope and pray as by the grace of God, for those of you who believe, because I believe in God. So let's continue to pray and hope that the best will come, and it will come as fast as it can, that Trump will live to become the president of America fast enough before this escalation takes place. 2 months is a long time. It's a very, very long time. And we hope, God willing, that we will overcome the bad asses, those bad guys, the European leaders and American leaders who overcome them, who always want to have this thing they want it to come, but by the grace of God, we overcome them. So let's continue to pray and hope for the best. I wish us the best. I'll continue to update us right on and on as the time goes by, and we see how the event will unfold. So we do have a wonderful time. Don't forget to subscribe, press your like button, and share the video if possible, so that the people will see and know what to expect, right? So you take care and be good.